Good morning, everybody. Nice to see the room filling up. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for the sponsors for inviting me. And thanks for the beautiful weather. I come from the Philadelphia area where the winter has just been extending on and on and on. So, and especially those who are from the Northeast, I mean, love the weather here. So enjoy the weather while you're here. This morning, I was going to talk a little bit more about wearable technology and their use in sports, fitness, extended to wellness and health. So Adidas has been a core pioneer in sports and research in there. And I'll unveil to you more about what we've been doing in the area of wearable tech. And probably that extends hopefully beyond sports. And I also particularly love the TechCon community because we are also moving to the space where people can use some of the things that we've created and build on top of that for creating more experience. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So as I mentioned to you, Adidas has been a leader in sports for a number of years. That is the picture of Adi Dassler, the founder of Adidas. That's where the name comes as Adidas, Adi Dassler. So I mean, in Europe, you call it Adidas. Here it's Adidas, all the same thing. But this is when he created the first screw-in stud that made the German team win the World Cup at that time. So, but then that tradition has continued, particularly in wearable sports. So we were the first ones to bring technology into shoes, into shirts. When the first mobile phones came out, that's when we had technology in terms of bringing this wearable tech and digital sports. And so we've been on this in this thing for quite some time. Personally, I've been involved with wearable tech also before it was called wearable tech, more in terms of smart textiles, where we created sensors and new functionalities for textiles so that sometime in the near future, we would not have to wear any dumb textile. It'll be all smart. So they can do a lot more things for us. So. And the main positioning that we have is like, now you can use this technology so that it helps each one of us, because we are all very different and we all have different needs, but we all have similar goals. And the goals might be either we want to be the best at what we have, or we want to enjoy, have fun, get better, all of those above. Right? And then this technology and wearable tech can extend all the way from the best of the best, the top of the world, the elite athletes like these World Cup champions. That's the German national team, by the way, who won the World Cup, if you're following. To each one of us, right? I mean, we are all athletes in our own minds, even if not recognized by others. But we all either enjoy sports or follow it or play to some extent. And that is so, it's like extends all the way from the very best to each one of us, right? Including people like me who are not good at much sports, right? So now we have this digital technology and wearable tech who can actually help us do better. Two main things. One is like we're all different, so now it can help us train differently, right? And then the second and most important thing is like, instead of training harder, we can all use this technology and wearable tech to train smarter and get more out of it. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about the different solutions that Adidas has come up with. I mean, I do realize that there is a lot of things happening in wearable tech all the way across in all of our daily lives, right? I mean, it's not just sports or fitness, but health and wellness. You might hear some more this afternoon, but all of that is good. All of that is great because now we're using this technology to help our lives get better and get smarter. And it goes from home automation to automotive to our personal lives as well, right? So that's all great and wonderful. Adidas is especially focused on sports. That is our sports domain. But then we look at sports all the way across. We look at it with the very best athletes and the elites. And based on the learnings from them, we bring that to the consumers so that the consumers can get the benefit of that as well. So I'm going to start by talking to you about some of the technologies that Adidas developed in the last few years, particularly for the elite athletes. And I'll start by showing a video, if that plays well.
Adidas, the game changers of football, introduces the My Coach Elite system, an innovation that is changing the face of football. Developed in partnership with the world's top players and coaches, Tablets are linked up to special wireless cells worn by each player. These give the coaches a bird's-eye view of the entire team. Players wear cutting-edge tech-fit tops with the tracker integrated in the neck of the top for comfort and design. The very best are using it to really get under the skin of player performance. An innovation that is changing the face of football. Who are the top performers? Who need to rest? Who could push it harder? The MyCoach Elite Team System puts the answers to these questions and more at the coach's fingertips. With real-time stats beamed direct from each player, they can track data like heart rate, speed, acceleration, and power. Tracking real-time performance insights, helping teams train smarter, play faster, and dominate the game. Imagine being able to use real-time data to decide when to make a substitution, or looking over at the bench and studying the heart rate of the players to gauge who could change the game. Performance data is transferred wirelessly, displaying match-critical information. Coaches can also create drills based on player data to hone match tactics or plan for the opposition. In the future, the likes of Joachim Löw could be using the Team Elite system in real matches, not just training. MyCoach Elite Player Cell and TechFit Elite collect and transmit data to the MyCoach Elite base, uploaded to the website for post-session analysis and reporting. Adidas makes training smarter.
So that's a quick intro of the MyCoach Elite Team System that was developed particularly for soccer at that time and mostly in training. And that is the German national team who used that for training all the way up to the World Cup. And those who were following the World Cup, of course, realized that the German national team were the world champions. And all of it must have been all because of this great technology that they had, right? So describing to you a little bit about the technology and where the wearable tech part comes into it, right? So you see this whole system. So it's like a full system, right? Where on the top left you have this base layer shirt, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The sensors that each of the players are wearing it, right? And that is where all the data is being generated, right? All the information that's been generated. That gets transmitted real time to a base station, that green box that sits on the sideline, which captures all the information real time, processes that information, and then provides that information, analyzed and insightful information to the trainers or the coach real time on an iPad. That is the whole system. And then once the training is done, all of data then gets transferred up to the web. And then you can look at all the data on the web, particularly the trainers, the coaches, or the players, in terms of how well they do more analysis on it, as well as be able to look at it over a period of time. Like you can look at it through the game, you can look at it or week to week, you can look at it season to season, you can compare different players and teams. So you got this full analysis ability to do that in this whole system. And that's like the shirt that player is wearing with that player cell at the back of it. I think I've got a view of that a little bit closer. So this is the sensor technology. So these sensors are built into the shirt. So that's a base layer shirt, which has these sensors that's picking up the physiological information from the player and then transmitting in real time. This was one of the core technologies that we developed, as Alex was mentioning, as part of Textronics, which was the startup from DuPont, and developing these smart textile solutions. And that's the player cell that is also attached to the shirt. And that has all the electronic. It has GPS, it has inertial sensors, it obviously has RF, battery, microprocessor, and that is the one that sends all that information generates and sends information to the base station. Now, because of this technology, I mean, the ability is for us to generate tremendous amount of data. Like, this is like, for example, a small snapshot of just like less than a second worth of data that you can capture. So you can get all this tremendous amount of data, which was not possible before, right? And it captures like your physiological information. It captures your movement based on GPS. It captures like very fine movement that you make based on acceleration sensors, gyroscopes, and magnetometer. So it's really all about the data, right? This is where you can get all the data. But then you got to take it a step further, right? And you look at all of this data and you see what kind of analysis that you can do, right? So you can now look at physiological information. You can also look at physical information, right? And you can now look at, for example, we were able to create metrics like power. So Those who are cyclists know you can measure power very well, right, because of the way the system goes. But not necessarily easy for people running on the field, right? But now with this wearable technology, right, we are now able to assess the total amount of mechanical power that each and every player is putting out, right? And then we also look at what is happening to the body's load of that, right? So what we do now is like instead of just data, we now take this data and do the analysis, obviously more from a sports context, right? So it's not really just the data, it is the analysis that you do on top of the data that becomes very relevant. And then what you do is, as I was saying, is like you now start looking at this data and the analysis from the data. And here's an example when you look at, for example, 3 different players, right? And you look at their heart rate. Okay, so now you have valuable information. Now you know that athlete B in this particular example is actually doing the hardest, right? I mean, because his heart rate is the highest up there, right? So now you can start looking and comparing. But then in addition to some of that information, we were able to, for example, calculate what is the mechanical power that each and every athlete is putting out, right? So now you can look at the amount of work that each and every athlete is doing and the body's response to that work. So you can measure the physical power that they're putting out and you're measuring what's happening to the body. So now then you got new insights into that, and that changes the dynamics a little bit now. So it was not really whoever had the highest heart rate is doing the most amount of work, right? It is more about who is the fittest now, okay? And that's what helps you get better and win games, right? And that is where the smart training comes in as opposed to hard training, right? If you adjust heart rate, you can just keep pushing hard, but not necessarily the smartest way to do that. So then you sort of bring the whole thing together, and it is really about the insights that you can get, right? So with Adidas, we had the ability of going and talking to the best of the coaches and the trainers, right? And the one thing that they said is like, don't come back to me with a lot of data because I don't have the time in the world to do that, right? Like, I don't have 5 more minutes to give anything, right? Because I'm on the field and doing anything. Just give me the most important things, right? And then it started out with like, very abstract thing. Oh, I want to make the players better, right? I want to avoid injury. I want to win games, right? And then we had to take that and understand, so what does that mean, right? How do you bring those insights so that these top coaches and trainers, right, who actually just trust their instincts and their eyesight, like this is what's happening, I know that, right? But now some data like this is very helpful, right? So then they can know exactly what's happening, right? So the most important point here is like, I mean, you need all the data in the world, right? But you have to bring it to the insights for it to be valuable, useful. Otherwise, nobody's going to use it. Okay, and here are some of the key learnings from, let me just put, because talk through that, right? Okay. So the most important thing was like, and these are these top athletes, right? They paid millions of dollars to play, right? And they're not going to put anything that doesn't help them, or equally important, that doesn't make them look good, right? Okay, so it all goes together. So it has to be simple, easy to use. If not, then nobody's going to use that. I mean, they'll use it once or twice, throw it away, right? And that's the end of it, right? The other thing is like, I mean, it has to perform. At the same time, it does not have to be over-engineered, right? Just give them or use just the right amount of information. Don't make it too powerful, more than it needs to be. Just make sure that it's like optimized. And part of the optimization is like, this is not just one thing. As I mentioned, it's the whole system, right? It is the smart sensor, it is the accelerometer, it is the GPS, it is the transmission and everything. And you have to optimize the whole system. As an example is like, okay, so if you want to really have the most powerful accelerometers in there, right? And then that starts taking a lot of data, storage, a lot of battery life and all that. And as a result, you have to make that player cell that big, right? Which is good from that perspective, but the overall system, it's not so good, right? Because then people aren't going to wear that, it's going to come in the way and everything, right? So you have to optimize the whole system as opposed to the individual parts of it. And then finally, as I mentioned to you, it's like about the insights. Like data is important to get to the analysis, and analysis is important to get to the insight. But you really have to get to the insight. And that actually becomes that much more important and relevant when you come at a consumer level, because at the elite level, even there are trainers and coaches who can do something with it, right? But at consumer level, you want it to be very contextual, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Okay, so that is what we mentioned about what is happening at the elite level with this wearable tech, right? Okay, and hopefully you now understand is like how wearable tech is actually helping sort of the best get even better, right? Including, did I mention the German national team won the World Cup? So that's about the level that you can get. That's about as high as you can get, right? And then use that experience. What Adidas is doing is like creating a whole slew of offerings for each one of us, right? I mean, most of you are probably better athletes than I am, but for most of us, so it comes to the consumer level. How can we take that insights, that learnings, and bring to unleash the best in each one of us? And I gotta just switch to see if I can play my other video.
It's run a million miles before you've even got out of bed. It's faster than you, fitter than you, and trains way smarter than you. It doesn't just do it. It knows exactly how hard and how far. Every kilometer, sprint, workout, every heartbeat. It knows more about you than you do. Got its own personal coach, 24/7, 365. All your records, beating every one of your goals, and you don't even know what it is yet. In case you hadn't guessed, it is your best, and it's only gonna get better.
Yeah, so the Adidas My Coach is a family of products and offerings. I'll talk about that a little bit as we go along. Okay, so Adidas developed a good offering of different products and services that now each one of us and each one consumers and individuals can actually use, independent of whatever sports we like or whatever our goals are, so that it can help all of us get better. And that's the whole intent, is to unleash the best in each one of us, not necessarily the best of the top player, right? And whatever you want to do the best at. And then also make sure that at the same time, it is also keeping you engaged, motivated, and have fun, as opposed to it being a painful process, right? And for that, okay, so for that, as I was mentioning earlier, Adidas has a full offering of different technologies. And mainly because each one of us is different, right? Some of us like to wear clothes which have sensors and smart clothes. Some of us may want to have a wrist device that makes sense for us. So each one of us, or something that goes in our shoes. So we have all of these different devices that work together, right, or independently, for us to help in each one of those. So if you are particularly interested in sports, and soccer is one of the sports, then there is something there for you. If you are more of a runner, there's something there for you, right? If you are more of a fitness, there's something there for you. And I'll talk briefly about each one of those so you get an overview for that. But the underlying principle in all of that is like, okay, so you need some kind of a device that gets data, right? Use that data to analyze the data, create insights, right? And then also, we provide you an opportunity to do an assessment of what you do, or where you are, and also what your goals are. Your goals could be to become a better player. Your goals could be to run a half a marathon. Your goals could be to lose weight. But understanding where you are and where you want to go, we actually help create a coaching platform for you, right? So that you progress, you see the progress, and you get engaged, and then it becomes a cycle for you to improve overall and also improve your behavior. And then the way it works is like we have devices, and the device could actually be your mobile smartphone, or it could be one of the devices that I mentioned to you earlier, and I'll talk a little bit about that, right? And then it works with the apps that we have created, so it has a very simple, easy to use interface, user interface. And then all of that information goes into the cloud, which is the MyCoach system, right? Where you have all your information there, you can put your goals in there, you can see how you're progressing, you can also build a community of like-minded people in there that helps you, gives you more inspiration, more engaging, so that it becomes now more fun for you to be able to use that. In addition to what we've been doing with the consumer, we actually are also working with the kids. So this IHT, it's a program that has been existing for quite some time. They were using heart rate to train kids in school. And we actually, in the last CES in January, we announced a partnership with IHT to help work with them and help get the kids engaged at a very early age so that they can also get the benefit of this wearable tech and then continue to see their progress. So here are some of the different devices. This is the heart rate, which is being used with one of our smart apparel. So that's a heart rate monitoring sports bra, which has the sensors built into it, and you clip on this heart rate monitor, and that's all you need, right? So you don't need a strap anymore, you don't need anything else. I mean, and if you don't like wrist device, you don't have to wear that either. This gives you the full system that works with your smartphone, and then all the data can be analyzed and looked at however you want it to. This is the FitSmart watch that goes on your wrist. It actually is one of the unique ones which actually measures your heart rate as well as your activity, right? And then it provides you information and coaching as well at the same time. So it has, for example, these different light colors that tells you which zone you are training in, right? And can also help you guide in terms of should you speed up your activity or slow down based on the zone that you should be in. The next one is a smart run, and that is designed more for high-end runners. And for a runner, that is all you need. That's all you need the smart run for, because it has GPS, it has music for you, it has inertial sensor, it has everything that is, and you don't need a smartphone or anything else, and you just wear that, and that's when you go. And then the next one is the smart ball. So this is the coolest one that I like. So this has sensors built into the ball, right? And particularly for people who want to just have fun, for example, with soccer, you take this ball, kick the ball, it tells you what your speed, your trajectory is. If you want, it will compare your kick with what Messi does, for example, right? Okay, and then you know how close you are to him or how you get closer to what he does. And I mean, we brought this thing in different situations, and these kids just come and they just start kicking it on and again. And you can see the progress that you're making every time that you kick. And then you see the progress that you're making versus your friend who's kicking that also. So now you're training them for a sport, but you made that so much fun and engaging that they actually love doing that, right, and enjoy doing that. And what we are also doing is like combining devices together. So this is our Speed Cell and the Excel devices. So one of them goes into your shoe. So if you are running or playing a sport, it will tell you what kind of distance you've covered, what speeds there are. The Excel device actually goes on your chest. It actually measures your heart rate as well as activity. And for example, we've now created, using the data, we've now created some new insights. So for example, if you're playing basketball, it will not only just tell you how high you're jumping, but how much hustle you're doing, how much quickness that you have, as you change directions and all that. So now it just makes it more fun and engaging in terms of knowing what you're doing in the sport as well. So what we have done so far, Adidas, is we had sort of our devices that worked with our apps that worked with our MyCoach ecosystem. And it was a closed system that worked pretty well with itself, so that somebody could come in, they can get the right device that makes sense for them, put their goals, and they can get trained. And the training and the coaching content was the key in terms of helping you get to where you want to be. what we have realized that it's probably there is a lot more talent out there who can actually use this ecosystem, either the training or the coaching content or the devices, to create new experiences. So we are just in the process of opening up our MyCoach ecosystem, right? Where, first of all, if somebody wants to take our devices and create new experiences on that, because, I mean, there are a lot of different sports and people have a lot of different ideas about what to do with it, right? So we can create some of those, but we are sort of looking to engage the broader community to see if there are others who can take devices and create new experiences. And we have our open API system that transfers the data backend, then you can do more with the data, right? We are also in the process of opening it up so that we can actually take data from other devices, right? And then we've got this strong coaching and training content in the field of sports. And we can help people coach and train with other data that comes from there. We are also looking at this thing, I mean, we start from the sports because that's our domain expertise, but we can see this thing going beyond sports into fitness, into wellness, into well-being, right? And there are certain things that we can do from Adidas perspective, but then we think that there is a larger community who can actually take this information, this knowledge, and this domain expertise that we have in sports and extend that beyond sports into fitness and into wellness. And that is the intent, I mean, particularly in this Wearable TechCon, to look at, see how we can now open the system that we have and be able to spread that as far and as beyond. We have announced some partnership with some other communities. We are in the process of finalizing our open API structure so that we can actually bring it to individual developers pretty soon in the next 3 to 6 months as well. Well, that is what I wanted to give to you a little bit about in terms of wearable tech and sports and fitness. Happy to open it up for a few questions, and I'll be around for most of today and tomorrow if people want to talk to me also.
Thank you. So for your open API, when will you formally announce it? And what will be the requirements for developers to have a kind of a bi-directional API from you?
Yeah. So we actually opened up our API sometime last year. We had a few partners come into it, and it was mostly single direction where the data was going back into it, right? We are actually also in the process of building device level SDKs, both for Android as well as for iOS, so that we can bring that out, and at that point, the developers can then take the data directly from the devices and then create experiences. We are also part of the Google Fit, and we actually are working with Google Fit in terms of a developer challenge using these SpeedCell and Excel devices to create more devices. So all of that is happening now. In terms of bidirectional data that you asked for, so that is work in progress. It's like we want to be as open as we can, but we have to start somewhere. That's where we started last year. I would suspect that our bidirectional, I mean, that is like still in the process. If I give any date, my tech guys are going to come and say, like, why did you give that date? Because, you know, but most likely in the third quarter, I think, is when we will be ready to bring that out. I'm sorry, she's going to.
Hi, my name is Ivy Millman. When you worked with the German national team and you were doing the analysis and the insights, how did you build that? Did you do that with your team or with the German national team? Did you do that with data scientists? And then how did you get the acceptance and as far as, you know, as they usually are doing it, no, we have our own gut, we have our own, you know, how long was that process where they began accepting data to make decisions versus their own insights?
Well, thank you very much. Excellent question, right? First of all, in the development process, right, I mean, we had our own internal team doing like, because it was like this whole system had different pieces to it, like it has smart textile, it has the electronics, it has the transmission, it has the data and the analytics, right? So we had a team of people working on all of that, but we actually also had a lot of people, external consultants that came in with us as well, right? Some of the software development part was done there. And then we actually have a great relationship with Exos, who used to be Athletes Performance, and they've been training athletes for a number of years. We actually, as Adidas, we actually had a great relationship with some of the key Adidas assets, right? For example, I mean, Chelsea, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, obviously German national team, also with some of the MLS teams. I mean, we worked very closely with that. And so there was a lot of dialogue that was going back and forth. I remember the first time when we went and talked to some of them and said, like, this is what we're going to do. And I said, oh, yeah, okay, fine, right? Come back whenever you have that, right? We went back in 6 months, right? This is what we heard, and this is what we think it is. Oh, yeah, okay, it's looking really good. So it was a very interactive process with them, and we were very fortunate to have that interactive process with them, right? And then we had some sports scientists in-house. We also worked with some universities on the sports science side to bring that insights in, and continuously checked with these trainers and the coaches to do that, right? So that is one part of your question. The second part of the question is like, okay, are they now using data, right? And the answer is like, it is like all the way to two ends of the spectrum, right? I mean, some will still continue to trust this thing, right? And I've heard trainers say like, so the coach, right? I mean, he's going to look at it and he's going to be very on the field, right? But then it's a slow process, right? And then some want to adopt this faster than the other. I remember the first time, this was when we were Textronics, right? Before we were bought by Adidas. We were, at that time, through Reebok, working with NFL, right? And they said, like, go and work with the Jacksonville Jaguars at that time, right? And the trainer said, is like, okay, put this thing in these 3 players because they're going to be more open to using that and the others will not, right? Because that's how it is, right? And we did that, and we got some good data, and then the other players came and said, like, why aren't you putting it on me, right? So that's kind of, it sort of grows on it. Right? I would say is like, I mean, with all the teams that we worked with, there are some who are using it actually a lot more. Actually, I should share this with you. So the MLS, as a league, decided to have all the teams have this thing for the last 2 years, right? And so we actually monitor how much data is being transferred, right? Not the actual content of the data, but how much amount of data. So what was interesting is last year, the team who won had the highest number of data, right? The second team also had the second highest number of data. Same thing that happened last year as well, right? So that's actually good, I mean, for us to talk about in terms of how that is using. I think it will continue to improve as we go along because the coaches will look at that. I mean, some of them will be, oh, okay, validating it. That's what I thought. That's what the data showed. That is great, right? And it's possible in some cases, like, that's what I thought, but the data says something else. And the data is not as good at least at this point. And that's also possible, right? But it's going to be a journey to make that happen. Thank you.
What's the frequency of the update to the servers? So for the API to go against the data, how often is the data transferred from the mobile device to the server farm, and what data are we getting with the API?
Yeah, okay. So, so 2 things. One is like, for example, when I talk about the elite system, which is all happening in real time, the latency from when the player makes a move to when the coach or the trainer sees it real time is less than 1 second. In that case, all the data is transferred at the end of the training when you plug into the central web, right? In terms of some of the consumer devices, right? So depending upon which device, it varies a little bit for each one, depending upon which device you're wearing, right? And if you've got the smartphone with you, I mean, I think the update rate varies by devices all the way from a few hertz to 20 hertz, right, data. And particularly, for example, for the Excel, when you are looking for really fast turns and moves, you need a much faster refresh rate, right? And then that's like also a trade-off between your battery life and how fast that you want that to happen, right? Particularly in terms of open API, I mean, if you, I will have to have one of our tech guys answer in terms of how fast we can, from the back end, that we can transfer that data in. I don't have the answer to that one. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Maxine Bingham, IoT Perspectives.
Yeah,
what is, so 2-part questions. What is the cost of Visit My Coach? Mm-hmm. And also, is Adidas getting extra revenue streams from services related to all this?
Okay, thank you. So the cost of My Coach varies, right? So if you start from the very top elite system, right? So that consists of the whole system that I told you about, including shirts and things. And that runs in the tens of thousands. It depends upon what the team wants, right? But then when you get to the consumer devices, right, the simple one, the heart rate monitor, I think is like a $30 or $40 device. the smart apparel, right? They actually, I love to talk about smart apparel because that's the history that we came from, right? So in terms of smart apparel, the first heart rate monitoring sports bra that we put out was something like about $50, which was about $10 more than any good sports bra that you would buy, right? So it was like a little bit upcharged, but the value was much higher and tremendous that. The highest consumer watch is the Smart Run for the high-end athletes. It's, I think, $399. The Fit Smart, which is also for runners as well as other, that is $199. The Smart Ball, I think it was $199. We just brought it down to $149. So right now, the service is part of the ecosystem that we provide, right? And we are not charging separately for the services right now. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Hi. Are you trying to take any step to commoditize this MyCoach Elite for the local soccer clubs here, like people who are involved in competitive kind of soccer?
Yeah, thank you. Excellent question. Yes, our intent is for team systems to start at the elite, but bring it down, right? Bring it down to the next level, the college, the D leagues, and then the amateur. And then particularly for the amateur team, we also have, as I mentioned to you, the Speed Cell and the Excel, which are like small devices. I mean, they are, the Speed Cell, I think, is $60, and the Excel is $40. So together, you can take both, and that actually kind of gives you a similar experience that the full MyCoach Elite team system gives you. So there are two ways we are doing that. We are using these individual devices, right, and use the data from these devices and create a team experience, right? And you can do that now. It's called the coaching circle. So the coach gets it from the whole team and does that, right? And then the second way is like take our elite system and then take a notch or two down, right? And that process is still happening as well. But the answer is yes. I mean, the intent is to bring that down. Thank you.
Khalid from Qualcomm San Diego. I have two questions. One, you mentioned about from data to insights. Yes. And clearly Adidas building the mechanism to collect data. Do you guys like work on also like analytics and how to create insight from data, or you leave it to the end user of your system?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So we actually do a lot of work ourselves with some partners and some universities to provide that insight, right? Because just providing data is, I mean, it's good, but it doesn't take you all the way. Somebody's got to do that part, right? Okay, and we've done that. So we have done that for certain sports, right? Even MyCoach Elite, we had a lot of interaction with these teams and the trainers and coaching, but we brought it to that. But we also give them all the raw data, so they can still do whatever else they want on top of that, right? Okay. Particularly for consumers, you got to bring it all the way to the insights, right? So that is what I was telling you about this whole circle. It's like, as a consumer, you have certain goals, what you want to do, right? Just be healthy, run a marathon, play a sport better. We do an assessment, and then we provide you the coaching. So all that data comes in, right? It provides you the coaching based on the insights, so help you get better. But then the intent for us opening the API is that we cannot do it all for all sports across all experiences, right? And the intent is like for people, more and more smart people, to take that information and then create that insight, because we believe bringing the insight is the most important than just a device or data.
Sure. And actually, when you talk about openness, you repeat it 3 times, create new experiences, right? So I'm extrapolating what you show us as an example of a coach and tablet, and you have players. I'm thinking about the school system where the teacher will be the coach and you have students, and you can measure some useful, are they paying attention, how much the learning experience, the IQ, EQ. So that could be one extrapolation, maybe a little bit.
Correct.
Beyond sports and wellness, maybe education.
That is correct.
Yes. Okay, thanks.
Exactly, yes. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. Do you, you do a lot of coaching for exercise, but do you do anything with weight management or any plan on doing that?
Yeah, so we actually have some coaching content for weight management as well today in our system. So if you go to mycoach.com and you pick that, you'll see that. But there again, I mean, those are some examples that we put out there, right? But the intent with opening the API is like there are probably people who can actually build on it or create more experiences, right? And even, for example, your previous question about soccer teams and bringing soccer teams, we're actually working with 2 different startup companies, right, who are going to take our devices with our open API and then create additional experiences for soccer team, because that is fine too, right? Because there could be more than one experience that you can bring, as an example. Same thing for weight. I mean, so we're looking for people who have more insights into that, who can create better experiences or different experiences.
Okay, this is Tim Betcher with RealityWorks. I guess this is the last question. Way back here. Do you guys have a roadmap for really taking this down into secondary schools to help with help educators within the physical education programs for a lot of analysis or data understanding, educators and how they can help their kids think about health issues? And then also looking at secondary education for a lot of the coaching opportunities that exist with football coaches, and the list goes on.
Yeah. No, thanks for asking that question. Good question. I mean, yeah, there is a roadmap. Unfortunately, I'm not able to share it right here with the team. But the example I gave about IHT, right? That's a school system. They were using heart rate straps, right, with kids in school. What we did is like we brought them some better technology to help make it easier, as well as bring some insights in the training and the coaching content that we've done, so that now that working with IHT, we can help kids in school and these trainers and the teachers, right, help train them better and help them sort of make it more engaging and more fun, so that they can see the progress in terms of how they're doing it, how they're doing it with others. So that is exactly the intent, right? And there are more of this happening as we go along, and we're looking at, as we open up this API, to find more partners who we can work with to bring it at the secondary level, the school level, at the kids level. But that is our intent to do that, yes. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for listening. I'll be around for most of the day. Happy to talk more.